Centuries before Judas was born, a prophet wrote down the exact price someone would be paid to betray God. 30 pieces of silver. That's exactly what Judas was paid. And there's a second gospel out there, one where he isn't the villain at all. Same man. Two completely different stories, so which one is true? 12 men walked closest to Jesus. Judas Iscariot was one of them, not an outsider, not someone who slipped into the group at the edges. He held the money bag. The Gospel of John says it plainly. Judas kept the funds for the entire group, trusted enough to carry what they had. So when people call him the betrayer, it's worth remembering. He was first an insider, one of the 12 men Jesus chose personally, which makes what happens next even stranger, because somewhere between being chosen and being the reason Jesus died, something changed. Or maybe it didn't change at all. Maybe it was always going to happen this way. Tonight, we look at what the text actually says about Judas and why, after 2,000 years, we still can't agree on whether he had a choice. Matthew chapter 26. Judas goes to the chief priests directly. He asks them one question: "What will you give me if I hand him over to you?" They agree on a price, 30 pieces of silver. Here's what most people don't know: that number isn't random. Centuries earlier, the prophet Zechariah wrote about a shepherd who was paid off, thrown away like something worthless. The price in that prophecy, 30 pieces of silver. Matthew seems to know this. Later, when he describes what happens to that money, he quotes the prophecy directly, except he credits it to the wrong prophet. Matthew's gospel attributes the line to Jeremiah. It's Zechariah's words. Scholars have debated this for centuries. Was it a copying error? Was it a common practice at the time, combining prophecies under the name of the more prominent prophet? Or is there something else we're missing? Either way, the price was set, and Judas knew exactly what he was doing when he accepted it. Days later, in a garden called Gethsemane, Judas leads soldiers to Jesus in the dark. He'd arranged a signal in advance, a kiss. That way, the soldiers would know exactly who to arrest. He walks up. He kisses Jesus on the cheek. And Jesus, in that exact moment, calls him something unexpected. Friend. Not traitor, not enemy. Friend. What happened to Judas after that depends entirely on which book of the Bible you open. Matthew's gospel says Judas was overcome with remorse. He tries to give the money back. The priests refuse it. It's blood money now, they say. It can't go into the temple treasury. So Judas throws the coins into the temple, walks away, and hangs himself. That's one account. The book of Acts tells it differently. There, Judas doesn't return the money at all. Instead, he uses it to buy a field. And his death isn't a hanging. Acts says he fell headlong and his body burst open. 2 books. 2 different endings for the same man. Scholars have tried for centuries to reconcile these accounts. Maybe the rope broke and the fall caused what Acts describes. Maybe the 2 writers were working from entirely different traditions passed down separately. The text itself never resolves it. What both accounts agree on is the location. A plot of land purchased with the betrayal money that became known as the Field of Blood. In Aramaic, Akeldama. And Akeldama isn't a myth. It's a real place. Traditionally located in the Hinnom Valley, just outside Jerusalem's old walls. Ancient burial caves are cut into the hillside there. A monastery was later built on the site, and it still stands today. So we have a real location, a documented tradition stretching back 2,000 years. And still, two different stories about how the man who died there actually died. Here's where the story gets uncomfortable, because according to the Gospel of John, Jesus didn't seem surprised by any of this. Long before the betrayal, John chapter 6, Jesus turns to his disciples and says, "One of you is a devil." John tells us directly. He was speaking about Judas. Later, at the Last Supper, John writes that Satan entered into him, right before Judas leaves the room to set the betrayal in motion. And then there's John 17. Jesus praying refers to Judas as the son of destruction. So he says that Scripture would be fulfilled. Fulfilled, not prevented, fulfilled. There's even an Old Testament verse that seems to be waiting for this moment. Psalm 41. Even my close friend, someone I trusted, who shared my bread, has turned against me. John quotes this line directly, applying it to Judas, so the question becomes unavoidable. If it was written down centuries in advance, if Jesus seemed to know from the beginning, was Judas actually choosing anything at all? Two major answers have existed inside Christianity for centuries. The first, Judas exercised real free will, greed, disappointment, human weakness. Whatever the reason, the choice was his, and he's morally responsible for it. The second, some form of necessity was at work. The betrayal had to happen for the larger story to unfold, which raises a harder question this view has to sit with. Can someone be blamed for playing a role they were always going to play? Neither view has fully settled the debate. It's one of the oldest tensions in Christian theology, and it's still argued today. But there's a third version of this story, one most people have never heard. In 1976, in the Egyptian desert, an ancient manuscript surfaced. It sat, mostly ignored, for decades, before finally being translated and published in 2006. It's called the Gospel of Judas. This text is not part of the Bible. It was written by a Gnostic sect, centuries after the events it describes, and no major Christian tradition considers it scripture. But what it says is remarkable. In this version, Judas isn't the villain of the story. He's the most trusted of the 12. And the betrayal itself, according to this text, happens at Jesus' own request. A secret task given to the one disciple Jesus trusted enough to carry it out. Same man, same night, a completely different story. So which version is true? The betrayer who chose greed, the pawn in a story already written, or the most trusted friend carrying out one final secret request? The honest answer is, the text itself won't fully decide for you. And that should sound familiar, because this isn't the first time we've run into this exact problem. The Book of Enoch was quoted as scripture by one tradition, and left out entirely by another. Judas is remembered as history's greatest traitor by nearly everyone, and in one buried manuscript as the most faithful man in the room. Different communities, different centuries, different decisions about which version of the story gets told. Maybe that's the real mystery here. Not what Judas did, but who gets to decide what we remember him for. If Enoch and Judas have taught you anything so far, it's that the Bible has more edges than most people ever get shown. Subscribe, because next we're going somewhere even stranger. A name mentioned only once in the entire Bible, who somehow became one of the most talked about figures in religious history. Her name was Lilith.